Whenever evil arises, so does a new hero, or in this case, a new light.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to the second part of our set review or set breakdown of Light of Salvation, Logic of Destruction. And last time we talked about the new Link Joker cards, and this time we're gonna talk about the one that's gonna defeat them, the hero of this story, and that's none other than Royal Paladin's new blaster support. And there are some interesting cards in this set, but overall they are a bit on the weaker side or on the awkward spot when it comes to Royal Paladin, as these new cards are all blaster focused and they are in the same trend that you need to have a completely filled field with blaster units. But sadly, we don't have enough blaster cards to build a complete blaster deck, which will make the deck a little bit wonky and inconsistent. But still a lot of fun to play, and let's take a look at these cards one by one to see how they function and how they might be great in the future. But before we're going to talk about those cards, let's take a look at the more generic support cards. And as you're going to see, they aren't really that great. As we're going to start off with this grade 2 Undulatory Sage Tarna. And its skill is continuous on Vanguard Circle and Guardian Circle. All of your Ratory Sage Belk on Vanguard Circle, Guardian Circle will get power plus 5k and shield plus 5k. So you have a 9k grade 2 that can give another grade 2 plus 5k power plus 5k shield, and sure, it can stack if you have multiple of this one, but they will give it to the other one. So itself is a 9k that only gives away 5k power and shield. That is already actually pretty bad, but it doesn't even give it to itself, it gives it to the other one. And yes, it can stack if you have multiple ones, but if you do not have the other one, it basically does nothing, and it's a 9k grade 2 in the Force Clan, which is actually pretty terrible. So I'm gonna give it 1 star, as it's just bad. And you're gonna see with the other grade 2 that's just gonna support which, why it's so bad. As the other one is Ratory Sage Belk, and she's also grade 2, and her skill is continuous on Vanguard and Guardian Circle. All of your Undulatory Sage Tarna on Vanguard Circle, Guardian Circle get power plus 5k and shield plus 5k. So she is again a 9k grade 2, and she has the same skill as Tarna, and so once again she gives the power to Tarna and not herself. So this is really a bad 2-card synergy, as they don't really help each other, they don't fetch each other, and this is miles apart of what we've seen with Akane and Pongal or Bedivere and Kay. This is just terrible. So once again, she will only get 1 star from me, as nobody's gonna play these cards. And I now know for a fact that somebody's in the comments, ha, but I'm gonna play it in my deck, so ha, joke's on you. Well, joke's on you, you play a terrible deck. Speaking of terrible decks, we have another very weak new card, and that is Refreshing Knight Gurhil. And this grade 1 has this auto skill, auto Vanguard Circle, when placed, if you have 5 rear guards, cost Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. So let's take a look at the skill itself. It's on play, Soul Blast 2, draw a card. That in itself is already not great. It's not terrible, but it's not great, as we already have better skills like with Ellen and Marin that can do it for Counterblast. And yes, I know Counterblast is a little bit tricky in Royal Paladin, but it only costs 1 and you place a card onto the field and you get some power and you get the draw. So you get more value out of it. This is 2 soul. But the problem is that you also need to have a full field to get that effect. So there's restriction on restriction to basically make the card unplayable, or at least not great. And that's why I'm only gonna give it 1 star, as we have plenty of better alternative, and we can use soul in so many different ways that is probably a little bit better. Then we also got a new grade 3, and that's Tentless Feather Dragon, and its skill is auto on Vanguard to Vanguard Circle. When placed, cost Counterblast 1, choose a column, call up to 2 cards from your hand to the Vanguard Circle in that column, and until the end of turn, this unit gets power plus 5k. If you call 2, draw a card. So it's another grade 3 with a force marker and a 4 rearguard and Vanguard Circle skill. That makes it a little bit better, as it's has more playability in itself, as you can also call to the Vanguard Circle. And its skill is not bad. It can plus you 1, and if you're already gonna call those units, you also get some power and it can draw. So basically you can say count plus 1, give this unit plus 5k and draw a card. That is pretty fair. The only downside is it's a grade 3, and anybody that knows with Royal Paladin, the grade 3 spots are completely important for their respective archetype. If it's Soul Saver, you need your Soul Savers. If it's Elfred, you need all your Elfreds. And for the new Blaster deck, you need your Blasters, and are in this case also Arc Saver Dragon. And you're just forced to run those cards, and you don't really have room for this one. So I'm only going to give it 2 stars, as it's not a terrible card, but in comparison in how Royal Paladin is played, it's not that great. Now that we all got this jank out of the way, let's take a look at the new Blaster archetype and all the main support cards around it, as where this new set basically focuses around for Royal Paladin. And we're going to start it off with not a Blaster card in itself, and that's Arc Saver Dragon, the new grade 4, which can be a grade 3 thanks to its first skill. And the first skill is continuous on Vanguard Circle and in hand. If you have a total of 3 or more types of cards with Blaster in their card name on your Vanguard Circle and drop zone, this card gets grade -1. So it can potentially be a grade 3. And that's pretty handy, as now you can write this thing potentially as your first grade 3 target. And also late game when you write as your grade 4, it can turn back into a grade 3. So you can keep writing grade 3s on top of it. So you're not stuck on your grade 4 number. And that's pretty big, as seen as it already has a force marker. So you can get your other force markers from your grade 3s as well. So that's an issue with grade 4s already fixed. And you're sitting at 14k base. So that's not really that terrible. And then we get to the second skill, although in Vanguard Circle, 1 place, cost, counter blast free, and soul blast free. Search up to 1 card with Blaster in its card name, each from your deck, drop zone, soul, and damage zone. In total of 3 cards or less, and call them to the Vanguard Circle and shuffle your deck. So as you can see, we can call from 4 zones, but we can also only call 3 cards, so we're gonna leave 1 zone out of the equation, and that's basically it. And seeing as it is soul blast free, you're probably not going to call 1 from your soul, so you're probably only going to call 1 from your damage zone, drop zone, and from your deck. And that's not really that bad, and it could have been a very powerful card, was it not for the new ruling change, or basically the errata of the rulings, that you cannot call cards from your damage zone face down if you are searching for a specific card. So in this case, we are calling a Blaster card. We're searching for a card with Blaster in its card name. And cards in your damage zone face down have no information, so it doesn't retain the Blaster name, so we cannot call that card. We can only call a face up card with Blaster in its card name. So that means we can only use its skill when we're sitting at 4 damage. So it's not good as your first right target, as you probably don't even have that many damage. And this will also mean that you can only probably use its skill once in the game, as we have no counter charger, and if you want to use it again, you need to heal twice, otherwise you cannot really call anything. So that skill is already out of the question to make it even pretty good. But as you're going to see with the other cards with Blaster in its card name, we need a full field, including our Vanguard, with a different Blaster name to make all the skills go active, to make them live. Probably as you can read, his name doesn't contain Blaster in its own original name, and it also doesn't get the Blaster name, and that makes this card super awkward in the current Blaster build, and with its second skill that was its only upside completely nerfed, makes the card actually pretty bad. And that's why I'm gonna give it 2 stars, as yes, it can be really handy in some scenarios, as seen as it's a grade 4 and it's also in grade 3, and it can call multiple cards, it can be really powerful, but it's the overall package and how it's supposed to work in its own archetype doesn't really work. It works against what the deck actually wants to do. And whenever we get a generic grade 3 that's also its Blaster, then this card will get bungered out of the deck and we replace it with the new Blaster card. Even if that grade 3 says, I have a force marker and my name is Blaster. And that's it. Even if it hasn't the skill, it's probably a better pick than this card because it's a Blaster in its card name. So now we're going to look at the Blaster cards itself to see why Arc Saver Dragon isn't really that great in contrast of how the deck is supposed to work. As it might sound a little bit weird if you're not familiar with the whole archetype shtick, that why it's only a 2-star card. So we're going to start off with the grade 1, and that is Blaster Dagger. And as you're going to see with all these cards, they're going to look a lot like some of the other clans, as they are portrayed as the main characters in the series that played a specific clan. So Blaster Dagger is going to have some uniqueness from Nubatama, as its 2 skills is continuous Vanguard Circle. If you have 6 or more units with Blaster in its different card names, they get boost. And its second skill is Auto Vanguard Circle. When your Vanguard attacks with Blaster or Arc Saver, so the support grade 3, in its card name hits a Vanguard, you you may return this unit to your hand. So that bounce effect is a little bit how Nubatama works. So it can give everything boost if you have a complete full field with different blaster names. Overall, that's not really that bad, but as seen as it's probably only gonna help you with one column that can now have a grade 4, as you can have Escapade in the back row, or maybe a grade 2, as we have multiple grade 2s and grade 4s and 3s, but only 2 grade 1s as a blaster name. We're probably gonna have some boosters on the field, but actually give everything boost isn't really that amazing, as you're already gonna put out high pressure numbers on the field, and most of your value is probably gonna come from your Vanguard, as we're gonna see with the VR. And to give everything boost isn't really that amazing, and you're probably only gonna run because we need as much blasters as we need, and we're already lacking in the grade 1 department. And its second skill is also a little bit awkward, as you can, when the Vanguard attack hits, you can then bounce it back, but you probably don't want to bounce it back, as you then lose your complete full field with different blaster in this card, so all your other skills will then no longer be live. So if you still have an attacking unit that has a special skill, you lose that skill. So it's a little bit weird in that sense how it works, but it can also work in your favor that you can bounce it back to hand, so you can save that card if you're up against a control clan. But overall, if we had multiple blaster units, this one will probably be the first one we're going to scrap. And that's why I'm going to give it 2 stars, as I'm honestly not that really fond of Blaster Dagger in how it works, and I much rather have something more powerful, something more useful. And a card that is really powerful and more useful is this grade 1 Blaster Javelin. And as you're going to see, this one is modeled around the Narukami engine, as its first skill is continuous Rigid Circle. During the battle that it boosted, if you have a Vanguard Blaster or Arc Saver in its card name, this unit gets power plus 2k. So it's a 10k booster, and it doesn't need to boost your Vanguard. So that's already pretty good. It's a 10k booster, always good. Then its second skill, although Rigid Circle, when it boosts, if you have 6 units with Blaster in their different card names, choose a Rigid in your opponent's front row and bind it. So we now can bind the unit for free. That's pretty good. The only downside is, yes, we need a full field, but the fact that it's a free bind makes the skill go in territory of fairness, as yes, the restriction is pretty damn hard, but we get then the skill for free, and that's why I'm gonna give it 4 stars, as the boost for 10k, you only need a Blaster Vanguard or an Arc Saver Dragon. That's not really that hard to get, so it's always gonna be a 10k boost. That's already a big plus. But the fact that you can potentially keep binding your opponent's units for free, that's a major thing, especially in Royal Paladin, as already beat over with high numbers, and you now also got a little bit of control for free on top of that. Well, sign me up for that one, and that's why it's definitely a 4-star card in my opinion. Then next up, we've got this grade 2 Blaster Rapier, and this one is modeled around Misaki, or also known as the Oracle Think Tank engine, and that's because of the following 2 skills. First one, continuous Rigid Circle. If you have 6 units with Blaster in their different card name, this unit gets power plus 15k, so it becomes a 25k attacker on its own with a full field. That's pretty good, especially if you have a 10k booster, 35 without a force marker to boot. So that's some high definite numbers that you're hitting. But her second skill, and that's where the value lies, is Auto Rigid Circle when it attacks a Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard with Blaster or Arc Saver in its card name, look at the top card of your deck and put it on top or bottom of your deck. So we now get some Scryer effect in Royal Paladin for free each and every time this unit attacks. And this is pretty big, as we get the Oracle Think Tank thing that we can search for triggers, but as we're gonna see with the VR, we can search for different things that makes some plays really scary and can help with the deck's consistency issues. And that's why this card is definitely 5 stars, as you can just put it in any kind of deck that has a Blaster Vanguard, and as seen as most Royal Paladin decks use Blaster Blades and Exculpate the Blaster, the fact that you can then scryer and check your top deck is pretty good. I mean, there's a reason why Oracle Think Tank was dominating the meta in the early games. But we also got a second grade 2, and this one is modeled a little bit around the Gold Paladin engine, and that's Blaster Arrow, and her 2 skills are Continuous Rigid Circle. If you have 6 units with Blaster in different card names, they cannot be chosen by your opponent's effect. So a little bit like how Garmor works. And this is honestly a very powerful skill. Yes, the condition is still very hard and tough to get to have all those different units, but when you have them, they are from that point onward pretty indestructible. Sure, there are some workarounds with field wives and all those kinds of stuff, but overall it's a little bit harder for your opponent to remove them, and that's what you want, because getting those 6 different units on the field is pretty tough, so you want to have a way to protect them, and this card helps definitely with that. And then we also got the second skill, this Auto Rigid Circle. When placed, if you have 3 or more types of units with Blaster in their card names, discard a card from your hand, search your deck up to one Arcsaver Dragon, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this can help you with your right target, as when you have 3 or more types of units with Blaster in the card name, at that time, Arcsaver Dragon will also be a great free. So it helps with the consistency issues that might come up when you want to write your specific card. In that, it's a pretty neat skill. Overall, I'm gonna give it 3 stars, as the main value of this card lies in her first skill, as the resist effect is very powerful, but it's only for that, to protect your field. The second ability, as I stated before, you probably want to see this deck as not running Arcsaver at all, as you actually hoping to get a new grade 3 Blaster unit and then replace with that, and then the second skill of this card is pretty much useless, and you only run it then for the resist effect. And that's why I'm gonna give it 3 stars, as that's everything that we're gonna use the card for. Then the final card, the final piece of the Blaster engine of this deck, and that's the main VR, and that is Messianic Lord Blaster. And it gets 2 very powerful skills. The first one is Continuous on Vanguard Circle. During your turn, if you have 6 units with Blaster in the different card names, this unit gets the original power and critical of all your rear guards. So it will attack for 6 crits, because you have 6 units, and you get all the crits of those other 5 rear guards, and you also get the power. And that can be like plus 60, 70, 80. That can be a lot of power on this single unit. And as soon as you have 6 crits, that can be an OTK right there. And if you have all those cards in your opening hand, you can write it in your first grade 3. Your opponent doesn't have a perfect guard, you just won on your first grade 3 right targets. And that can happen. That can surely happen in some games. Not probably a lot, but it will happen from time to time. But in those use cases where they don't have everything in their hand, you might think, well, I'm safe of it. Well, then we get the second skill, and that's Auto Vanguard Circle. When you drive check, reveal a card with Blaster in its card name, you may call that card to an open rearguard circle. So basically, when you're missing a specific card, you don't call anything to the rearguard circle, and you hope you're gonna drive check that specific card, and then call it. And while you're drive checking, then its first continuous skill will activate, and it will gain all the power and all the crits. What makes so powerful about this card is that you can go and swing with a not complete filled field, and then your opponent needs to think, is he going to get that last Blaster unit and get his first skill live? Because when that happens, and they didn't perfect guard, they're probably dead, as a 1 to pass, a 2 to pass, a 3 to pass, a 4 to pass, a 5 to pass isn't enough, as it's probably going to get 60 to 70k on top of its original power. And that's gonna hurt a lot. But at the same time, when we look back at Blaster Rapier, we can then scry at the top and search for that specific Blaster unit that we're missing, so we can put it onto the field with Messianic Lord Blaster skill, so we can surprise our opponent. So we can use his tactics to overwhelm our opponent, or give them that false sense of security, and then, while they're not expecting it, smash them over with a 6 crit, 70, 80k of Vanguard, and then they are dead. But overall, it's a little bit inconsistent, and we still miss some key pieces, so for now I'm going to give it 4 stars. Yes, it's a very powerful potential card, but as it is now, we are still missing at least one grade 1 Blaster unit, probably another good grade 2, and actually another grade 1, as we want to replace the Blaster Dagger, and we need a better grade 3 support card that's just adds Blaster in its card names to make the deck a little bit more consistent. When that happens, this card can be nuts. But for now, it's a 4 star. It's a fun, neat tactic, but it's more on the fun build than actually a competitive, realistic, I'm gonna win most of my games or a lot of my games type of deck. So as you've seen, we don't really have a lot of new cards. We've got a couple of just gen cards that doesn't do anything. And then we got the new main archetype, that is the Blaster engine. And overall, it's a very neat, interesting package. Individually, when you look at the skills, there are some powerful effects, like the one for Narukami, the one for Blaster Javelin, that's an Narukami card with the free bind, and the one that is Blaster Rapier with the whole Scryer effect and the plus 15k. Those are some powerful effects, especially with Messianic Lord Blaster. But the only downside to the deck itself is that we still lack the amount of different Blaster units, so the consistency of the deck is still on the lower side, which makes the deck not really that great and probably subpar compared to something like Alfred. But with that, we talked about everything for the set. I'm very curious what you guys think of these new cards for Royal Paladin. Sure, they might not be the strongest type of build, but they are a very interesting bunch, and they make some really interesting things, and it can be for some really interesting matches between Brand and this new Blaster build, as since we all has watched the anime, and it's just some fun new interaction and new ways to play Vanguard than just the generic things that we've seen before with all the other things like Alfred. But who knows, maybe we get some new Blaster cards in the future, and then suddenly this deck might rise out of nowhere to be the new meta contender, as its skill can be very powerful. And if we can consistently put on this Messianic Lord Blaster skill live as our first grade free ride target, it can become a meta-defining deck. But for now, how it is, it's just not optimal enough. But as I stated before, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of all these new cards and how you think you're going to build the deck, and if you're either even interested in picking up these new cards, or if this is probably your first Royal Paladin experience, as when these cards were revealed, I suddenly got really hyped to try it out and actually play a Royal Paladin deck, as before I didn't really play Royal Paladin that often, but this looks just so fun, as yes, it's wacky and all, but it's still really fun to play and try to fool around with these new cards. I want to thank my Patreon supporters over at Patreon for making this video possible, and if you too want to support me and get exclusive access to some content over at Patreon, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one.